So our third and last topic for discussion is titled The Sociological Imagination of Online Teaching, SAS 1 Self and Society. Our speaker is a retired professor of the University of the Philippines, Los Baños, and has taught at the Department of Social Sciences, College of Arts and Sciences, Institute for Governance and Rural Development, College of Public Affairs and Development, and School of Environmental Science and Management. She has been involved in the several researches and publications in the social sciences, which can be found in local and international refereed journals, and as journal articles and chapters in books. She has a vast experience in the presentation and analysis of research and is continuously tapped as a research evaluator and resource speaker. Recently, for the Gender and Development webinar of the National Research Council of the Philippines last December 9, 2021, of which she is a regular member. She is also a member of several professional societies, such as the Philippine Population Association, an associate international member of the American Sociological Association, and is the current vice president of the International Sociological Association. At UPOU, she is currently handling the elective GE course, SAS 1 Self and Society. Everyone, please join me in welcoming Dr. Gloria Luz M. Nelson.
Thank you so much, Krista, for your nice introduction. Good afternoon. I hope we had a good lunch, and I had a good lunch. It was really nice and wonderful food. Thank you, Daniela. Okay, the title of my presentation, one advantage of being the last speaker is that you don't have to, they have already said many of the things that I wanted to say, so I'll make it very short, and I don't want to repeat what has been given already, no? Now, you may be wondering why I titled it The Sociological Imagination of Online Teaching. You are not sociologists, but I'd like to explain it to you what meant by the sociological imagination. It's actually a phrase from C. Wright Mills. Our sociology students, undergraduate level, will never be able to graduate unless they understand and sink it into their mind the meaning of sociological imagination. So what does it mean? As a teacher, I'm using the learning environment, whether it's a face-to-face or online or virtual classroom, and as an opportunity to activate the students to think sociologically, or to think in the sociological imagination way. So what's the meaning of sociological imagination? I know you are not all sociologists here. It's really actually connecting your personal situations to a broader issues. And I'll give a very specific example. For example, you don't have money right now, or you are unemployed. But then you might find out later on that you're not the only one unemployed. There's several others in the Philippines and worldwide who lost their employment during the pandemic. So that's the meaning of connecting your personal situation to the broader issues. And that is sociological imagination. No? So in other words, you are not the only one who has that personal trouble. I guess it may be a consolation for all of us that we are in the same boat, especially it is even harder for many of us after the pandemic. So the sociological imagination is very, very up to the GE course, SAS 1, Self and Society. When this was formulated, I was still an active member of the faculty of the UP Los Baños, and I was one of the three who was picked out as champion to formulate this GE, they call it the Super GE course. No, one from UP Los Baños, and that represents me. Then another one from UP Manila and from UP Diliman. So there were three of us. So I'm kind of familiar with this particular GE course, although I did not yet teach it when I was an active faculty. But now it's my first time to teach it in a virtual or online um, mode of learning. No, so let me go to the next slide. I'd like to remind you that this is a general education course, GE course. And what does it mean? It means to say this is the Tatak UP. Lahat, whatever your course is, whether you are in engineering or in medicine, you go through the 2 years of liberal education. In other universities, they call it liberal education. We call it here general education. So what is the framework of the UP General Education? It actually means that, everybody knows it, but there's no harm in refreshing you about it. It reflects and promotes the loftiest principles at the core of a UP education. That means going beyond inculcating habits of thoughts and ways of perceiving to developing the ideals of humanism and nationalism. So tandem yan. Developing both humanism, being makatao, and being makabayan. So, pagiging makatao at pagiging makabayan is actually the core principles of the general education system here at the UP system. Let's go to the next slide. So, when we talk about the GE faculty, well, not everyone is supposed to be able to teach it, no? They are actually supposed to be, GE course lang yan, undergraduate lang yan. Pero actually, it's really those who have this particular qualification. You have to have at least a master's degree and a sufficient teaching experience in the areas of your specialization. Ideally, they should know interdisciplinary teaching and have done interdisciplinary research. Because when you're teaching, for example, SAS 1, Self and Society, you are not just limited to your own discipline, sociology, but you should know a little bit of psychology, a little bit of anthropology, and biology at that, no? And Philippine studies, no? So this is what we meant by the interdisciplinary pedagogies for the GE courses. Next slide, please. Now I'd like to give you an idea about SAS1 or Self and Society. It's under the GE education curriculum under the social science cluster. What does it focus? It focuses on understanding the self by examining, again, here is the interdisciplinary part, the biological, the psychological, the social cultural dimensions, and appreciating human agencies and the emergence of the self in different social contexts. So the subject matter allows a student to think about themselves, but it is coming from several other disciplines. So in other words, when you look at yourself as self, you are a person, not just a person, but you are a person that is coming, the framework and perspectives are coming from several other disciplines. This is our framework. Next slide, please. This is the framework for the course. In other words, the self is the subject, which is the I pronoun, which is the subject, but me as the object, no, another pronoun. So what do? There's always a constant interaction with society. And what is the society consist of? Others, the family, neighborhood, and school. As simple as that. That is the framework for this particular course. Our outcome is to differentiate the various perspectives and ways of knowing about the self. You have to explore the various self-definition based on personal and social contexts in a rapidly changing world. No one expects to be in the global pandemic. No one is prepared for it. And when it came to us, there is not even a treatment. Until this point in time, there was no treatment. But at the point when the close shut down, there were several millions of learners affected by it. No, and of course, definitely we shifted suddenly from face-to-face mode to what we call an online, but the public education call it blended learning because they are considering students who do not have the access to internet. What is another outcome? You have to engage others in pursuits that facilitate group interaction and leadership. And of course, demonstrate social responsiveness. And that is where humanism and nationalism comes in. So that is SAS 1, no? That is our learning outcomes. By the way, I'd like to introduce to you my tutor, Junie Gonzalez, a former advisee, all right? And most especially also a neighbor at Pleasant Village. So very, very convenient for me, to be able to have Junie Gonzalez with me. Let me walk through the content of the SAS 1, which is Self and Society. There are 12 modules in all, but we only selected 10. According to Dr. Buot, ma'am, we are not 16 weeks. We are only 12 weeks. So I selected only 10 out of the 12 modules. No? And in other words, that is also a very subjective selection. I also wanted to mention at this point, since I already mentioned Dr. Buot, when I first came in to teach at UPOU, this is our second semester of teaching it. The first one was in the first trimester, and now this is the third trimester. I was able to get acquainted with Krista, who gave me a familiarity about what is going on in the Moodle thing. And Dr. Buot spent one morning with me, walking through what is this Moodle learning system, LSM, learning system mode of learning. Because even before pandemic, I was already doing Google Classroom. I never asked students to submit their paper in physical paper. I always ask them to submit it online. So the Moodle is entirely a different thing. So thank you, Dr. Buot, for, uh, really wanting me to teach you here at UPOU, because she devoted one morning to teach me on, the basics of the Moodle. And because I had the background on the Google Classrooms, it was not very hard to shift to this new LSM mode. Okay, so what is the module 1? This is the hardest among the module, because see, when I first read it, I thought we are talking to graduate students, because they are talking about big concepts about self, and perhaps those who did this forgot that they are going to teach it to the first year undergraduate students. So what we did is to come up with a recorded Zoom meeting, and try to introduce the course, and introduce particularly module 1, because it was very, very, I think, quite, if you don't have enough background, it will be very hard for you to be able to understand it. So we introduced them to dualist, essentialist perspective, and then we gave them even Foucault, as for the discourse perspective, and the conversational perspective by Goffman, which is the presentation of self in everyday life. So what does it says? In the critical perspective, you're saying that once you are in a situation, your exchanges with that person differs because the situation is different. The person you're talking to is different, and the situation that you are into is different. So suddenly you shift, and your self changes right there and there. So it is really the social interaction that is actually making self as very dynamic and very interactive, right? We go now to module 2. Oh, why is it module 3 right away? What happened to module 3? Pardon? Oh, okay. I don't have the module 2 anymore in my thing. All right. The module 2 is the process and the context of selfhood. So what does it mean? So now it's again a very difficult subject matter, because then we are talking about George Smith here on how we develop, how we learn how to talk, and how we learn to be able to see, to know the norms, the accepted norms of the society. And he outlines to us what it is, what are the different stages that a person undergoes, from the preparatory to what we call the play stage and the game stage. What's the difference between the play and the game stage? In the play, there's no rules. But once you are in the game stage, there are rules to follow. And as a child, you go through that and you bring that into your adult. So that when you go to a different culture, there are different rules. And rules are what we call norms, the standard of behavior. That's why if you don't know these new rules in a different culture, that's what they call, you actually experience culture shock. So these are the things that we actually enlighten our students, from module to module. In other words, you have to understand module 1 before you can go and graduate to module 2. Now, these modules were not authored by us, they were authored by different social scientists all over the UP system, and we credit them for that. And they are the ones who provided several activities. But then when they wrote this, it is supposed to be in a face-to-face thing. It's not an online thing. So we added activities so that it will be more appropriated for an online virtual learning. So when we go to module 3, now we talk about culture, ethnicity, and personality. And I think for us, everyday people, we understand the meaning of culture. There is no society without culture and vice versa. In other words, it is the culture that cements the people together so that we are called a society. For example, one of the things that we mention to our students is that Indonesian, Malaysians, and Filipinos physically look alike. There's really not much difference. We are all of Malay race. But what is the difference? It's in our behavior. And in the behavior is part of our culture. We are now what we call part of the globalization is that we mix with different types of people, not only different types of personality, but different types of culture. But it is only the Filipino make a switch, no? And that is cultural, and that makes it a little, the way we talk, the way we move, the way we sit, actually distinguish us from other people. And that's what we talk about when we talk about culture, ethnicity, and personality, and they intersect. And that's the meaning of those 3 circles. So when we go to module 4, and we are now in module 4, in this third, we are currently teaching this particular module. It's me, myself, and I. It's about their body image, the rites of passage, gender, and sexuality issues. It's a very, very crucial stage for adolescents because this is when you become more aware about your identity. So, and identity is your physical appearance, and that is what we call body image. What we wanted to clarify to our student here is that body image is a perception, not necessarily who you are in reality. That body image can be positive or negative, and it can affect your self-esteem and how you evaluate yourself. And that's how we go through. And they like this. This is a module that where they begin to like it. It's because it is not as theoretical as the first 3 modules. When we go to module 5, we talk about the development of values, principles, ideologies. Now they like it, this one, because we talk about love and attraction, risk-taking behavior, and peer influence. Junie and I co-authored an article on teenage pregnancy, and that is what we ask our students to read, because it's part of the risk-taking behavior of teenagers. And they love it, and they give us their feedback on this. And these are the 3 components of love and so forth. Then we become aware that our students are are past the adolescence already. Some of them are already mothers and they have their own family. But then they are still able to reconnect and recollect about what they were when they were an adolescent. Module 6 is about me and my mental health. This is a very, very crucial issue, especially now during pandemic. 1 in every 5 because of our isolation and the stay-home rule, because of the lack of social interaction, you know, some of us, get to have some mental health concern. And that is actually what is going on to us. It is an ongoing issue at the moment, especially during this pandemic. So self and society as a course is very, very relevant as a course. And so we discuss here about the different factors that contribute to our mental health and well-being. Now, there are at least 3.6 million. Can you go to the next slide, please? Module 6. I gave you the new version. I think you do not have the new version. At least 36.6 million Filipinos are battling mental health issues amid pandemic. And that is according to the Department of Health. That is a lot. 3.6 million out of our 10 million, 101 million, 110 million Filipinos. When we talk about Module 7, we talk about individuality, citizenship, and leadership. All right? Now, this time, they can connect now that you as an individual is part of a family and part of an immediate community, and you are also part of the nation building and the rest of the humanity. You are not just a citizen of the Philippines, but you are now beginning to say that you are also a citizen of the world. So in this next slide, people are connected to each other. One cannot simply stand idly by and ignoring the plight of others, as shown in the picture. I gave you this one this morning, you know. So, sayang, hindi nila nakita yung sinasabi ko. So, when our connection to one another is simply not to ignore the plight of others, but what you see is you have to connect with the other. So there's that simple thing about empathy. Not you only as a person, but you are able to empathize about the concerns and issues of other people. And during this pandemic, I think we need to exercise a lot of empathy. And we did exercise that. When we had the community, uh, what do you call it? Community pantry, the community pantry. That is an example of showing a lot of not ignoring the plight of others. When we don't have enough food, you are able to share it. And we have a lot of that because we have that principle of pakikipagkapwa. I love this course. See, it's so very relevant and very timely. No? When we talk about Module 8, we are talking about when they go out of the university, what happens? So they are now concerned about their own career, their community, and society. We ask them to watch this particular video about Steve Jobs, how to live before you die. In fact, it is one of the favorite module of the students because when we ask them to reflect, what did Steve Jobs meant when we say stay foolish? Oh, we saw a lot of many, many, many responses. Some literal, it's really just being foolish. But others are able to go beyond the meaning of what being staying foolish. Then we move on to the Filipino self and identity. That's module 9. This is kagandahang loob, lakas ng loob, malakas ang loob. And this is coming from the article by Aleo, Kayamanan ng Loob. This is the Philippines. I like the picture because it's not ours, but it's a contrast between if you can see the background, there's that high-rise building, and then we have the barong-barong, which is an exemplar of what it is like to be an urban poor, right? So here, we asked them to take picture of, what it meant by kagandahan loob, lakas ng loob, and malakas ng loob. And while Miss Dr. Flores was discussing some of the strategies that he used in his classroom, we have an idea that perhaps we can change the activity that we assign to our students by asking them to do an infographic, on how to exercise this different katangian ng mga Pilipino. This is the last module, The Self in the Digital World. It is authored by one of the faculty here at UPOU. So we are now in the Internet of Anonymous Things. And that is the last module that we are introducing to our students. And most of them can relate. Because once they wake up, what do they pick up? Their cell phone. They look at their Facebook, they look at their Instagram and so forth. So they can relate to this particular topic as well. And we have a very, very good activity on this one too. Now, who are our SAS1 students? During the first trimester, we had 156 students. In the third trimester, we had 100. This semester, they call it, we had 103 students, no? So what does that mean? Not all of them actually come, For the 103 students that we have this term, ma'am, only 86 are actively participating, and that's about 83% of of the 103. So what do? We wrote to each one of those who have not shown up, by email. What is the reason? And so far, only 3 responded. Only 3 out of those who do not, who have not been actively participating. So what do? These are our course requirement. We give them reading assignment. They have to know the content of the course. So they have to read the content of the module. And there are some readings, chapters of the books that we assign. And that's about 50% of their grade. We assign them 8 reading assignments. And then we give them reflection paper. In the first term, we ask them to do a reflection paper. But this term, we changed the reflection paper to discussion forum. And I think that is a very good choice, no? So because it provides them an interactive message board about what others think about what they have written. And then I give 4 quizzes that are very objective, that are automatically corrected by the Moodle. So we don't do anything about it. But with the reading assignments, with 103 students, that means to say that we are correcting 824 reading assignments and a total of 412 discussion forums. We have a rubric for that, and I'll show you later. We grade what the student had written, and then we also grade the responses that they have to other students. They have to respond to at least 2. So that for the whole term, we grade a total of 1,236 essays between Junie and us. Junie has more, All right. Okay. Now, what else do? We have to define what is the online modality. It is actually a process of educating others via internet or learning in a virtual environment. It's not a walk in a park because social structure is different from that of a parallel face-to-face structure. The motivation to work on the assignment and accessibility to network, is a reality. Dr. Flores called it technical gap, but we call it digital gap, All right. Students are learning on their own. It's so hard to concentrate. I asked Junie is now enrolled in a course in UP Diliman, an education course. It's so hard for her to be able to read on her own the reading assignments. Very lack motivation because of the shorter attention span. And of course, I think our students right now are more visuals. So we have corrected that. And there is very limited uh, collaboration. So we do a lot of reinvention and innovation. That means to say autonomy and flexibility. We use a lot of wide resources, video clips and so forth and so on. And then there is always that skepticism. I think that is the very first thing that I mentioned to Dr. Buot when I was invited to teach the course is that will they be able to learn? Because in my face-to-face teaching, that's also one of the things that I always have to ask myself, are they learning? Because the students cannot get immediate help, unlike in a face-to-face class. But of course, there is the chat box, but not everybody use it. I don't know for what reason why they are not using it. Next slide, please. Right. So what are the things that we give them? Recorded session. And for each module, I prepared a PowerPoint. For each module, aside from the readings, I changed the mode of presentation to modules so that they can understand those concepts. They have to give the concepts because when we ask them to do the reading assignments, we wanted to for them not to use the layman's term because then they wouldn't make it, they wouldn't make a difference to one who has not enrolled in the course. And I think Dr. Buot knows that because she was also my student in one of her graduate courses. I'm looking for the concepts that you learn in my class because then if you don't use the proper concept, then you are no different from somebody in the market, because one who is educated is one who is a cauliflower, not just a cabbage, so that when you are educated, you have to use those concepts and those jargons. And that is what we are looking for when we check the reading assignment. What else do we do? Well, we ask them to check their portal all the time. We use the email and we provide space for one-on-one consultation. We provide them immediate feedback, numerical grade, just like um, uh, just like everyone else who have shared a while ago, we also we grade them 1 week. We do not only give the students deadlines, Dr. Laurel, we also give ourselves a deadline to finish in the grading. So that once they submitted this week, Monday, we have to give everything the following Monday to them so they get an immediate feedback. Or else, they will not be motivated to continue and work on to the next module. Right, this is the idea of Junie. Ma'am, let us have a weekly reminders. So what are these weekly reminders? We give them about the list of materials that they have to view and deadlines that they have to do in order to be able to finish and succeed and go to the next module. It allows students to ask questions or clarify anything about the reading materials and requirements. We encourage critical thinking, which is a common thread when we do ask them to do the reading assignment and they participated in the discussion forum and it honed their skills. We also provide them criteria for each module. Each module has a different rubric because it 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 meant to say that it's a different standard of grading. Because there are two of us who are correcting it. We have to be uniform. So that's why the rubric doesn't only work for the students on how they are graded, but it also is a guide for the tutor and the FIC on how they should grade. It's a standard and it's ensure fairness and objectivity. This is an example of a rubric. So it's always talk about reflective, deep understanding, analysis. They have to analyze coherent, concise, and fluid presentation of ideas, engaging writing style, grammatically correct, and those two are just 5% and 7%. So you might be wondering, the next question that you wanted to know is, how do they perform? This is the third term, 2021, 2022. All right? In the reading assignment, we have given already 3. This is their average. This is their average score out of 50. Not bad, huh? Out of 50, this is not bad for the reading assignment, which is 50% of their grade. This is how they perform in the quiz. This is in the quiz one, the first quiz that we have given. As you could see, it's between 9, 11, their score, it's just a 20-point item quiz. A 20-point item quiz, they have actually, the median is about 9 to 11. I think it's 11, no? It's 11, no? 11.85. I'm sorry, it's there. It's 11.85. But look at their performance in quiz 2. This was only last week. They have improved a lot. Can you see now? Can you see now? It's now more to the going to the right. As you could see, the improvement is very good. Although from 86, now there were 84 that who took the exam, and I think we're getting a median of about 14, no? A mean of 14 in this part, 15, a mean of 15 for quiz 2. And who is satisfied? Not only the students. And I think it's when we give quiz, it's also a feedback for us. And answering the same question, how effective are we? Are we really effective? Do they get everything that we are asking them to, the different tasks that we ask them to do? In the discussion forum, it's the average is 42.08. We only had one so far, and that's also over 50. The concern of the student, Mom, I have to take the quiz, I have to take the quiz. But remember, if you look at your course guide, it's the reading assignment that has more weight. It's 50%. So you do well in your reading assignment, not so much because that carries more weight. But we are so exam oriented. We always think that it's always the one that has the biggest chunk of our grade is coming from the exam. But no, we have to always remind it to them. You do your task. The readings are really quite more important. This is the reflection paper in the first semester. Not bad, right? As you could see, there are 4 reflection paper, and they did very well on the last one, the reflection paper on the 4th one. It's over 47.92. This was mentioned by Dr. Laurel already and Dr. Flores a while ago. We have to accommodate the diversity of our UPOU students. They are different from the regular UP students. First, of course, the digital divide is more pronounced. Internet connectivity or access to reliable internet. There are many who are working students, both locally or internationally. So that's how do we cover it? We give them 1 week for reading assignment. We give them 3 days for discussion forum. And for quizzes, they can take it for 24 hours. It's open for 24 hours, meaning no matter what your time zone is, you can still take it. This is in consideration for our students who are working abroad. So with different backgrounds and different perspectives, and actually a lot of them are solo parents, and some of them are in a consensual relationship as well. And some of them, when we were talking about identity, they were actually giving us their sexual orientation. Last term, there were about, a good number of them, who belong to the LGBTQA+. We do not ask them to write biography or short sketch about themselves. But we learn about our students through the course of whenever they submit their reading assignment. One time they asked, our BCOS students in the College of Public Affairs are now visiting, and they are surprised how I could remember them. Of course I can remember you. I give you regular assignments. I give you regular activities, so I get to see the uniqueness of each one of you. And that is the reason also why never in my 33 years at UP Los Baños did I have a request of a change of grade, because I get to know my students by the different activities that I give to them. It is not just a single assessment, several assessments that I give to my students. That is the reason why I get to know each one of them face to face all the more now in the online uh, mode of teaching. The knowledge level is very different and varied. Comprehensibility and written communication varies. The level of consistency in turning assignments and other activities on time is there. We have never seen so many creative excuses that they give to us why they did not submit it on time. Sabi ko, saan na kaya nila kinukuha itong mga reasons why they do not submit? So creative with even medical records and so forth and so on. So we let them go. We are good, nice. But one thing about pandemic is that we became more human and empathetic, towards our students. There is also that imminent cheating. It's so hard because we are in the technological age. They can tend to copy, it's so easy for them, but they are easily, although even though we don't have the check, you can tell, by previous assignments whether they write in the same manner as they did. So it's a pat on our shoulder, after all. In teaching and in many aspects of life, you cannot please everyone. But let us show us what they have told us. I felt great working on the activities po. Never did it came to my mind na they were just tasks to be finished. Instead, they were extra opportunities to learn, with which all activities should feel like. You have to keep spreading wisdom. I was just recently promoted and moved to a new department. It is very challenging for me right now since I'm adjusting with my new role and responsibilities. That's the one excuse. I just wish the option for the answers. This is the one questioning about the quiz, I just wish that the option for the answers for the true or false is that man-made disasters is also questionable when so many research prove it otherwise. I allow it. I answer it in their chat box. For Junie, they said that they appreciate people that understands their situations. And this is for Junie again, made me better and stronger student this term. And I learned a lot from the course. Thank you po. All right. So why do we have this feedback? We stay we s- we still keep in mind what is the G pedagogical principles, whether it's a face-to-face thing or or an online modality. So what do we wanted to achieve? We want our students to think critically, creatively, and reflectively. And that's why we have that reflection papers. These are the skills that we want them to, no matter where, I'm sorry, Dr. Laurel, we are not so much about their grammar, but if they are saying that they are thinking out of the box, we give them a good grade. No? And because that is the principle that we wanted to, critical, creative, and reflective thinking. And it should be learner-centered focus, clear articulation of the outcomes. We are always have that in mind. And of course, adopt an interdisciplinary pedagogy, whether you are not only teaching a social science course, we know that social science will not exist without the thinking and perspective of the biologist, Dr. Sabaralia, and without the thinking of the anthropologists or the humanities as well, Dr. Paul Sabaralia. We ask them also, how would an artist would look at it in a different perspective? And we accept that too. I'm using again a term in sociology, the social construction of online teaching. What do I mean by this? It is teaching whether online, synchronous or asynchronous, or in person, small or large class size. During my last few years in the University of the Philippines at Los Baños, we shipped to large class, 200 in one auditorium. So we need to construct a lot of big halls. They said that in a recent survey that was done, if you are a good teacher in a face-to-face classroom mode, you are also a good teacher in an online mode. So never, whatever the mode does not make you a different teacher. If you are a good teacher when you are in a face-to-face class mood, you will also be a good teacher in an online. We can see that from Dr. Laurel's examples that she, an exemplary teacher, she reads everything that the students. She was a good teacher in a face to face. That's why she was also very effective in the online mode. Because we always thought that teaching is not just a pay, it's not just a job. It's a mission. It's also a passion. And how do I describe passion? Man, it's like having a boyfriend that when you wake up, you always think about that boyfriend. You know what she like, how you please him, and how do you do it. The same thing also when you wanted to learn something new. It's something that you always wanted to think. It's something that you wanted to make it better as a student and as a person. In like manner, why the students who have good grades also get employed, because it's an indicator that they are also very passionate when they were a student. Therefore, it is likely that the reliability of a good grade can also be transferred to being a reliable employee. So what do we do? What do you mean by we socially construct the meanings we have on teaching? We have different meanings about what it is to be a teacher. But we also socially construct our perceptions on students in the same manner. The students socially construct their perceptions on us. So we are not the one only assessing them. They also are assessing us. No? So where is the sociological imagination? I go back again to the title. So the challenge is how to make an online course engaging and interactive. And I think that is true for everyone. But more so is how to connect personal situations to broader issues while engaging in constant process of self-reflection and social positioning. Who is me amidst all the 110 million Filipinos? That is your social positioning. Who am I in relation to what's going on in this time of uncertainties? Who am I in the time of when the one that I voted did not come out to be the one in power? So, it's part of the social positioning that you have to do all the time. So, in other words, we wanted to create whatever your subject that you are teaching, we wanted to create and develop to our students a thought communities. Thought communities is also similar to what we meant by sociological. In other words, not just looking at yourself alone and me and myself, but also looking at it in the point of other points of view. And I think that is more laymanist, huh? Looking at yourself at the other points of view of others. So, and the last challenge is how to develop the ideals of humanism and nationalism. So, it is not just being tao. It's so easy to being tao. And pagiging makatao is more important. At bayan versus being makabayan. In the one that I got from the internet, we don't have makajos because UP is non-secular, so we don't use that. But what we do is, in the G framework, we have makatao and makabayan. That's it. Thank you.